Good morning and welcome back to my workshop, or what will be my new workshop. I'm sorry I haven't posted, it's been about a year. I had a stressful 18 months, including a house move, which was really complex and involved. But we've now moved, we're in our new house, and I've got a new workshop, and I wanted you guys to see exactly what I've been up to and where I've got to so far. Now this is what it looked like when we first moved in back in May. As you can see, there's a partition wall at the bottom of the garage, which I've already taken out, which you'll see in a second. The previous owners of the property had built this beautiful studio, and it was really well put together, to be fair, but me and my son-in-law quickly set to work and started demolishing it. Not for any other reason, just the fact that I need as much space as I can for my benches. So as you can see, there's a lot of my junk at the back there, and we've started moving in the benches and various other bits and pieces. But first of all, I need to strip this, and the first thing I want to do is paint the floor. So the first thing I had to do was move my benches. I decided to move them to one side of the garage, do one side at a time, then move it back over and do the other side. I'm afraid I didn't record myself actually painting the floor because that would be a little bit boring, but it's a simple process. You work your way around the edges, cutting it all in first of all, and then start to roller it. If anyone's wondering what I used to paint the floor, it's a Leyland floor paint. I used it before in the old workshop, and to be fair, it worked really well and really quite hard wearing, so I thought stick with that, use it again. The second job I had to take care of is, if you look closely, there's a gutter running on inside of the garage. That's right, on the inside of the garage. So I quickly removed that and filled that with some sand and cement. Now for the exciting part, or should I say the expensive part. I ordered some 4x2s, not quite 4x2, but it's CLS timber for the stud work, some rock wool, and some 11mm 8x4 sheets of OSB. The first job was to board the ceiling, so I cut some noggins. Noggins go in between the rafters to give extra support when fixing up the 8x4 sheets to the ceiling. Now the noggins went up fine, as you can see. The tricky bit was getting the 8x4 sheets up onto the ceiling. I had to improvise here and come up with a little system that would hold the piece up at one end, and at the other end I would have a piece of 4x2 that was slightly too short, wedged in place, which would give me time to get some screws in place. This seemed to work. I decided one Sunday morning it was time to put the guttering back up, but this time on the outside of the garage for the obvious reasons. I was quite happily doing this, and I was standing on a tiny little platform which I slipped off, fell backwards, put my arm out, and as you can see, broke my wrist. This was a real pain, and this really put me back, as I was in plaster for just under 7 weeks, I think it was. The minute my arm was out of plaster, the first thing I wanted to do was to replace this rotten old garage door. As you can see, it was warped, bent out of shape, and not very good at all. I didn't really have any strength in my wrist to do this, so I called on a really good friend to come over and help me do this. As you can see, he made a fantastic job of it, and I'm really super pleased with it. It was bare wood, as you can see, so I gave it 2 coats of primer and 2 coats of top black gloss. Come out really well, really happy with it. So with my wrist out of plaster, and after I'd gained a little bit of strength back in my wrist, I was really keen to start getting these 8x4 sheets up onto the ceiling. This was a job I was really keen to get done. Now it may look like I'm jumping from one job to the other before I finish the ceiling. That's because after speaking to the electrician, he said he couldn't do the first fix until I at least had the stud work up, so I needed to crack on with that first. So after watching tons of YouTube videos about how to build stud walls, I decided I'd start with the sole plate that runs along the floor first of all. I drilled holes straight away through the wood. I used an 8mm drill bit and then an 8mm masonry bit, and put 80mm bolts into the floor. They seemed to work really well and held it down very securely. can't remember the make of these bolts, but I have to say they're incredible. They've got like a plastic raw plug all the way around, which you bang into the ground, and you bang the majority of the screw in, which they suggest. And as you can see, the impact driver, even that struggles with them. It really does bite, and that beam certainly isn't moving anywhere at all. As with any concrete floor, in certain places really struggled. You've only got to hit a stone and that's it, you're in trouble. As you can see, what I'm doing here is I'm checking with a screwdriver the depth to make sure it goes in the full 80mm, and then hoovering out the majority of the dust. I often find that works. And as you can see, just repeat, bang them in and get the wrench onto them, or the impact driver rather. Now it's times like this when you really need two pairs of hands. You need two people, that's for sure. So trying to wedge it up, as you can see, with a piece of wood that's slightly longer, or slightly higher than the ceiling rather, and then getting a fixing at the other end. Now this is where my new laser comes in really handy. I can obviously set it up on the floor to make sure the beam is level with the beam on the ceiling. As you can see, it's absolutely spot on. Now you're probably wondering what I'm drilling into. You can't see it, but I made some pencil marks as to where the rafters were, or the joists were rather, so I could get a nice fixing into those. Not sure what was going on here, but I clearly wasn't happy with that screw. So new screw, and in we go. I just wanted to check this one more time to make sure it was still in line with the laser. It wasn't. Slightly out. Me being the perfectionist that I am, I had to make sure it was right just before I get that second screw in. Then it was just a case of screwing into the other rafters or joists that run along the ceiling all the way along. Time to get some uprights in. Made a little spacer which I put between the two uprights, which you can see. That works out at exactly 400 between centres. So with that in place, I know I can't be wrong. I think they call this toenailing when you go in like this. First time I've done it, so it's all new to me. I just made sure they were square, put a square in place, drilled 2 holes, and then put 2 screws in, as you can see, and then moved on to the top. After that, it was really quite simple. It was a case of putting a spacer in, drilling 2 more holes, putting in 2 more screws, and repeat. I really enjoyed it. Process was really quick, and what's nice about it is you get to see progress really quickly, which is unlike projects that I normally do. Now I was a bit limited for space, but fortunately my mitre station was on casters, so I pushed that outside onto the driveway. I measured from the top to the bottom to work out best place to put the noggins. I knew it had to be 1200, but whether I went from the top or the bottom, I decided to go 1200 from the top for the rock wall. I don't have a support for the laser, so as you can see, I decided the fridge freezer was the perfect option. Fitting the noggins was really simple. I devised a little process where I put a block of wood underneath to hold it in the exact position, clamp it, put the screws in, take the clamp off, move it to the other side, as you can see. And that worked really well and really quickly. So that was it, one wall done, or one side of the pillar anyway. I then moved some stuff around and just repeated on the other side, and that went up really quickly. I then moved over to wall number 2. Wall number 2 is slightly different, as you can see. It's the back wall of the garage, and it has a window in the centre, which you can see. Really simple. Carried on with the uprights at 400 between centres. Only recorded a little bit of this because I feel that stud work is stud work, and once you've seen one wall, the rest would be the same and would be quite boring. As you can see, I've had to put 2 cross members across, and that was really straightforward. I just attached from either side with some screws going into the beams, into the cross members either side. That was really straightforward. And then carried on with the uprights. I then had to wait for the electrician to come back to deactivate the original electric supply coming into the garage, so I could only stud up to that box, as you can see. But I thought I'll carry on with wall number 3. Again, I didn't video it, but as you can see, I got a little bit carried away and worked into the evening with this one. Then it was back to the ceiling. Now these are 8x4 sheets of OSB. In metric, they're 11mm. I'm not sure what that is in inches, and they are really awkward to handle on your own. I had to get my wife to give me a hand with these to get them up on the ceiling. Now, I wouldn't recommend the way that I did this, but we had to come up with a way of getting them up. Once I had them up, I devised a little system where I put some swivel blocks to hold them in place, and then I could get them into the exact position and fix them to the ceiling. To give an exact spacing to allow for any movement, I used little tiling spaces of 2mm in between each block. Just marking where the joists are or where the noggins are that I've put in, so I can nail straight into those. I'm using 50mm or approximately 2-inch ring shank nails. Now there's no way they're coming down, and I'm putting about 50 of these nails in each board. If anyone's tried hammering upside down, it's really difficult, as you can see. Now I was a bit silly here. What I'd done was I boarded over the loft ladder and the loft hatch, but as you can see, that's easily remedied. I started out by cutting out with a multi-tool and then with a Japanese saw. Now that's better. Now as for the lights on the ceiling, I'm fitting 600 by 600mm square LED panel lights. These are the frames. You mount them to the ceiling and then you simply slide your panels in straight afterwards. Really simple. As you can see, they're all perfectly in line with a laser, and this is how they look. Now I'm pleased to say this is the last 2 sheets of OSB that are going to be going up onto the ceiling. I've managed to get 2 of these out of one board, which is always good, and as you can see, they'll be going just above the garage door, and then that'll be the ceiling finished. Okay, to finish this video, this is where we're at. As you can see, it's in a bit of a muddle in here at the moment. It's like one of those giant jigsaws, and I'm having to move things around to make space all the time. So, the electrician's been in, and we have some cable running, ready for the new consumer unit, which will go on the wall, just here. He's then run me loads of cables, which are all ready for my power points, as you can see. We have quite a few of them. I've set up a temporary charging station now, but the cables that you see running down the wall are where plug socket's going to be. For a light, more sockets. But as you can see, the whole garage has now been studded out. All the boxes or all the frames for the lights are now on the ceiling. The loft hatch has been cut out. And we're pretty much ready now for me to start putting the rock wall in between the studs. Once that's done, I'll then put a vapor barrier, and then I'll sheet the walls with more OSB and start to get into some order. I will then get the electrician back in and he'll start to fit the sockets and wire up the lights for me. That's it for now. I'll keep you updated and there'll be more in part 2. Thanks for watching.